Welcome to Knowing You, Being You, a series of conversations with change makers who know that all change, no matter how big or small, begins with you. And today I'm joined by Amanda Heisman from Heisman Health, who is a nutrition intuitive and energy embodiment coach. And I'm delighted to have her here to talk to you about embodiment. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Polly, for having me. I'm excited to be here. I really respect and love your work, so thanks for having me on.
Well, you're here because I respect and love your work. So there you go. Love fest. But before we start, it'd be lovely if you could tell us a little bit about how you came to be doing what you're doing now and what your journey's been.
Sure. So just a little bit about what I do now is help people learn to eat intuitively and eat for energy, so they can just use that intuition and that energy to bring forth, like you said, knowing you, being you, bring forth their purpose and their passion into the world. And I'm also a nutrition intuitive, so I can channel the needs of the nourishment body and give messages in that way. I talk a lot about the energy of nourishment and how it's different from the diet energy or the restriction mentality. But how I came to do this kind of all started with a car accident is how it started. I was securely climbing the corporate ladder, doing my thing here in South Florida. I was in corporate America for a better part of a decade, and did well there for most of that. But then when the car accident happened, I suffered 2 herniated discs, and that kind of turned my world around to complete 180. So I'd previously been really like type A, really very much accomplishment driven. And then I couldn't do a lot of the things that had brought me joy. I couldn't do a lot of the things that I had been doing, like triathlons and marathons and things like that. Even sitting at the computer, sitting at the steering wheel, driving car hurt. So that just started a long journey of healing in which I said no to disc fusion surgery, and then found my way with other holistic modalities. And so that just opened up a lot of doors for me. I was being introduced to things I didn't know existed before then. And like, acupuncture and qigong, and getting much more involved in yoga than I had been, and nutripuncture, just all these different modalities. And eventually that led to a lot of researching and reading about nutrition, and led to me leaving corporate America and going back to nutrition school. So at that point, that was about 5 years ago, I went through that program and became a certified holistic health coach. So I've always been very holistic in that sense. And then from there, I really dove into the spirituality side. And about 2 to 3 years ago is when my intuition, we're all intuitive, but is when my intuition really started just being really apparent. And I added sort of this spiritual side to my scientific side and married them together. I call nutrition and intuition a match made in heaven. So that part of it was spurred by a relationship ending. So there's always these interesting spins off of what we might call hardships or traumas in our lives. But that's the short version.
Yeah, there's a lot of packed in there, isn't there?
Sure.
So you talk about the nourishment body. It would be really interesting to hear your take about what the nourishment body is, because we do think about the body as in a closed system, I suppose.
Yeah, so the nourishment body is energetic. So when I talk about the nourishment body, I'm talking about an energetic system that I see that looks like the physical body, but sometimes it shows up like almost like a what's that little man where we played when we were
Mario?
No. The surgery, and it was like, meh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, operation.
Yeah. Okay, so sometimes it shows up where like organs are highlighted, in a body, or sometimes it shows up like certain colors or, of the chakra system needs support. That's how it shows up for me. That's just my specific way of how I see and feel people's nourishment bodies. Sometimes their higher self shows up with a very specific message, or like I look at the energy underneath the physical thing, and then we address that along with the physical symptoms and what might help at that point. So that's how I see the nourishment body. But all of that is also moving people, moving people away from kind of how we've been inundated with certain ideas and beliefs about our bodies and food and nourishment in our society, in our modern culture, and into the energy of nourishment. So there's the nourishment body, but there's also the energy of nourishment, which is something that it's really open and it's really free. And it's really like, it's something that's not a struggle. It's something that happens with ease. It's something that's the divine recognition, like it's a recognition of the sacred and divine in us. I see it as a sacred thing to nourish ourselves 3 times a day, or however many times a day we eat. And so that is something that, along with channeling the needs of the nourishment body, we can move, on this pendulum, so to speak, away from sort of the diet or restrictive mentality or the dogmas, like the diet dogmas that are out there, and into this energy of nourishment and this really healthy relationship with nourishment and with our bodies that's just really open and free. Like when I feel the energy of diets, or even just any specific dietary theory, it feels very much in a box. And when I'm in the energy of nourishment, I feel very like a lot of space there to run around.
So in practice, how does working with the energy of nourishment differ in terms of thinking about how you eat and how you think about food?
Yeah. Well, a lot of ways. So some of the things we don't realize, we don't necessarily realize consciously how we're thinking about food and eating until it's brought to light. There's the things we know, but then there's the things we don't know sort of thing. So our thoughts, turn into practices. So like right now I'm looking north on my balcony, and it's a totally different view than if I looked west on my balcony, right? So we're taking a totally different perspective. But practically, that looks like, I talk a lot about intuitive eating. And we don't kind of just like wake up one day, say we're going to intuitively eat, and we're all like, with our body, right? Like it doesn't just like happen overnight. It's a practice. And we use a lot of different tools to get there. Food journaling, but also really noticing how our body feels. We do, if you do this like sort of journaling thing for 3 weeks or something, it might be a case where if you didn't do it, you would not notice the difference between how you feel now and how you felt 3 weeks ago. But having done it, you can look back and say, wow, look how far I've come, and notice all of those baby steps and celebrate all of those baby steps. So that's just one practice. I do a lot with what I call intuitive eating mantras. So we kind of dig in and make these mantras kind of a foundation to work from, of retraining our own subconscious. Like, I'm open to new ideas of nourishment. Anything I choose or don't choose is a reflection of my body's highest wisdom. Like putting that kind of sovereign, like I'm sovereign to nourish my own biochemically individual body. Putting that kind of trust and respect and sovereignty back within our bodies instead of looking outside of ourselves. Learning to trust our bodies again, because we've really been conditioned and sold a lot of messaging around not trusting ourselves. I would say not only in eating and nutrition, but in a lot of ways. But this being my specialty, we talk a lot about just bringing it back to ourselves. And, what's right for Amanda might not be right for Polly. So we really get intimate with our own bodies and learning what works for us and what doesn't. Along with, there are some big universal truths about the human body. We all do really well with, adequate water and vegetables and fruits and sleep and movement and love and appreciation in our lives. And beyond that, maybe there's some room to explore and discover and just get curious, like drop the judgment and just get curious about what's happening for us and in us.
You mentioned their movement, which is one of your specialities, is it not?
It is, yes.
Yes, it makes anybody who hasn't watched one of Amanda's lives, it normally involves a dance party of some sort.
It sure does. I am a big believer that like life should be fun, our work should be fun, you know, and the universe responds to fun, right? Our cells respond to fun, and everything does. So when you say movement, the first picture someone might get is me being a personal trainer or something like that. And that's not the case at all. I actually am really big on embodying, like having movement in our lives that is joyful for us. So whatever that looks like for you, you know, I'm not saying you have to do 30 minutes of cardio every day, but maybe we go up and down the stairs, you know, whatever, we take a walk, have a dance party, do a little stretching or yoga, you know, like something is better than nothing sort of thing. So whatever makes people happy, if going to the gym makes them happy, then go to the gym, you know. But I think when people get into an energy of obligation is where it's not, you know, we go down this path of it eventually not working for us. So I love embodiment in dance. Like that's one of the things that I love to do. And I've used it in my programs, and actually just ran the embodiment game in which we took our intuitive eating mantras and we round robined how we felt about them first. And I'm going to run this again this month. So it's a lot of fun. It's less lecture style and more interactive. So we talked about it, then we said the mantra, and then 9 times, and then we sang it, and then we danced it. So we're kind of dancing this new information like into ourselves and into our body, and, you know, letting it both sink in and come up from within, and just really embodying the truth of those statements in whatever way that means for the individual.
That's really interesting, because you talk, when you're talking about sort of like going to the gym or whatever, as you're doing half an hour of cardio, we have, as you were saying, we've been sold so many lines about that. You've got the restriction of you must get this amount of exercise, you must eat this number of portions of X, Y, and Z, and all of this. So it becomes a burden to bear, doesn't it? Right. It's an energetic burden to bear, thinking I can't eat this, I can't eat that. But I haven't been to the gym today, whatever.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, even just the languaging, like noticing the languaging we're using, like you just said, I can't do this, right? And I think we've all been there where we say, oh, I can't have that, or I got to be a good girl, or whatever. And so that's one of the things when we work together that we kind of work on changing the languaging around that. Well, I could go to the gym, but I'm choosing to dance today. You know, whatever the empowering statement is, or, you know, I think just even it's so deep in our subconscious that even as light workers, and even having, you know, like I imagine your audience to be folks who have done a lot of personal development and work on their business and things like that. But even with that, like it's just so deeply ingrained, this kind of old way, what I refer to as kind of like old paradigm thinking around nourishment, food, movement, that we catch ourselves saying stuff like that. So yeah, it's the first noticing of it, and then the moving towards how we'd like it to be.
And I think for me, that's one of the biggest messages, is that we have to look. we by looking at every part of our life, then we can support the areas that we're most driven to take forward at the moment. So as you said, we can look at our spiritual life, we can look at our physical life, we can look at it, but we tend to do them individually rather than saying that actually this is a whole. Embodiment is about the whole thing. Yeah. Across the piece.
And that's the thing, right? Is for me, it's hard to separate, because I mean, the body, so often we might have these really big emotional, spiritual upgrades that we have, but we have to like bring it down into the body and integrate it and let it kind of come through us. And the body's the last thing to upgrade. The body is also what's on the spiritual journey, right? It's here to experience. Like, I don't know about you, but so often I think like I learned something, so that's it. Like I mentally understand it, or I get how it would be good, but until I actually like go out and do and experience, it just stays there, right? So to really embody and experience is like what we're here to do in this lifetime. And speaking of like bodies, this body is, and just body appreciation, this body is like our chosen vehicle in this lifetime as well. And so it's kind of, rather than kind of divorcing from it and putting a lot of space between your spirit body and your physical body, I really love the coming together of them and dancing together. And I mean, each of us chose the body that we're in, so why not enjoy it? Why not love it, appreciate it, use it, move it,
see what it can do.
See what it can do, see what potential it has. I mean, I believe there's a lot of potential out there in the physical of things that might seem superhuman now, or like I might think is a miracle if I could do that in the pphysical, but I think that's within our grasp. So
it's funny, that's exactly what Patrice said when she was talking about being in the body. She said that the physical body is going to exceed what we think is possible.
Yeah, and I do think that's in our lifetime, like in the next 30 years sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, getting stronger. So the nutrition side of it, that intuitive nutrition side of it, is really it is hard to put to understate how big. A massive crow just landed on my lawn.
What is that?
It's hard to understate how big a shift that is in our thinking, to move from listening to what our body is saying and what it it's saying it needs versus what we should. It's a massive, it is a humongous shift.
It is a humongous shift. And so I don't expect, and I'm still working on it myself. I don't expect anyone to get it right away. Like I keep kind of sharing this message, but it's a long time to sink in. I think with any big shift, things have to sit in our energy for a while before we really like kind of have that aha moment in the of doing, right? Not the aha moment up here, but the aha moment of, oh, like I feel how that feels now. Like that feels really different. I'm finally getting it. So yeah, it is a really big, and so that's why I talk about the moving away and into, because it's not like from here to here, 0 to 60 overnight sort of thing, or even 1 week or even 1 year, right? This is deep in the human psyche of like the moving away from one thing and into the energy of another. So it's steps, just like anything. It's steps on our journey. It's a path. It's baby steps that are worth celebrating. So.
Yeah, it's, yes. Sorry, what was it? I had something just dropped into my head and went straight out again with the crow that just flew off. But yeah, it is that the slow, that we have this quick fix mentality, don't we?
Right.
I want to be thinner. I want to be richer. I want to be whatever. And I want all of that tomorrow. But we have layers to ourselves and we have to learn to work through them. So what's right for us intuitively for our bodies right now might be completely different in 3 weeks' time because we've shifted again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, just that you're bringing up a good point, that where our souls are going intuitively does not sit comfortably in the intellect, and how spontaneous the redirection process can be does not sit comfortably in the mental space. So just being open to that flow is a great point.
And that's the other thing is, of course, if you're going on that journey and you are allowing yourself to be guided by external reference points, Either you're getting yourself stuck because they haven't moved, or you're not really meeting your own needs. So learning that to trust that inner guidance and that intuition is imperative in order for you to evolve and develop.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. But on the practical side, maybe some sort of something serves someone for a while, like on the way there, you know, in order to move just from here to here, maybe whatever, following like a paleo or a vegan or whatever, like sort of thing might serve them in order to get just here. And so that's great. That's fine. Do that. But as you're saying, like all the while being aware of kind of stepping more into listening to your body.
Yeah, because otherwise you will say, well, paleo works. Why isn't it working for me anymore, or whatever? And it's because you have to be open, coming back to your mantras, I have to be open to new ideas and I have to be open to change in order to be able to keep on.
And if we can be open to those ideas and like moving away from the quick fix mentality and open to like all of the possibilities, I mean, I just feel like the world is at our feet, you know, like anything could happen sort of thing. Like that just feels really good and free and open and like exciting to me for that, like what else is possible, you know?
And I think there's a phrase, or it just popped into my head, comfort eating. It just popped into my head, and we are made to feel guilty for comfort eating, aren't we? But what you're talking about is both through food and just being aware of our body is about creating joy in the experience.
Yeah.
So joy eating.
Joy eating, exactly. Oh, you just coined a great term. Joy eating. I mean, exactly. I kind of say if the happiness like if the joy outweighs the guilt, it's a yes every time. And so maybe having that, whatever the comfort food is, you know, from our childhood or whatever it is, maybe having that dish is a nourishing experience for you in that moment. And maybe it is the best thing to nourish you in that moment. So, I mean, Abraham Hicks says like we could survive and thrive on a diet of jelly beans if that's what, you know, made us happy. I'm not necessarily taking it to that extreme, but you get the idea of the energy of joy eating.
Yeah. So, because it's not about denying yourself. It's about actually giving yourself what it is that really makes you feel happy. So if that happens to be an ice cream, or it happens to be a great big thick piece of chocolate cake, then it's making you happy. And it's like a, you know, as you say, it's a treat that you can, something that just like lifts you up.
Exactly. And it's not what you do, like, we got some blocks happening over here. It's not, it's not, like what I like to say is it is a treat, and it's not necessarily like, what we do every day, all the time, every meal that affects that, you know, it's what we do on a more habitual basis that's going to build the foundation. So definitely that chocolate cake could be a nourishing experience in that moment.
Absolutely. So, so you mentioned you're going to be doing the embodiment game again, because it was a lot of fun. But you've got a number of different ways that people can connect with you and experience this to shift their perception. It's both paid and free, haven't you?
I do. Yeah. Some of the ways to work with me are, I do private coaching in 4, 8, and 12-week programs. And if you are interested in that, I'd love to offer your listeners a free 20-minute kind of connect call / mini reading. I can do a mini reading on their Nourishment Body. And I think we have the links to that.
Yeah.
So that's free. I have a number of different digital products and programs that are self-led that you can take yourself through, like sugar release, like an intro to intuitive eating. And then live stuff that's coming up is a holistic detox, and the embodiment game are coming up this summer. So those are going to be a lot of fun. And they're all welcome in my group, which is a free support group called Intuitive Eating for Energy, that is just kind of where I hang out a lot and is an easy way to access me. But you can feel free to DM me or email me, Amanda@HeismanHealth.com, if you'd like to talk about where you might click in the best.
And I have to say, I would highly recommend it. I mean, the reviews the testimonies that you get from your experiences, just like off the scale, that people just feel so much more alive by losing all of this clutter, mental clutter that we've got around the eating and nutrition in our bodies. And you mentioned it, but that being comfortable in our body shame, whole malarkey that we have in our culture. So but Amanda's reviews are off the scale and people feel absolutely wonderful. So I would really, really recommend that you go and find out some more about her and see what she can do for you, because we all need our bodies to be in the best possible shape.
Yes.
Not.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to talk to you, and there's been a lot of inspiration in what you've been saying. So I really hope that everybody will feel that they've got some more insight into their own needs and how they can really tap into bringing themselves into their bodies a bit more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Polly. Appreciate you.